If you've watched any of my live composition streams when I work on my new character compositions, you might have seen my unusual composition technique that uses this beast. I developed it myself based on the processes of Arnold Schoenberg and Roy Harris. It's a doozy, so buckle up.
Bloop boop boo. Bloop doop doo. Bloop doop da boo.
Hey, I'm Michael, and I have a doctorate in music composition, so I've studied a lot of different composition techniques. Some are ways of organizing the form of a piece, while others are more for organizing the pitches within the piece itself. We're going to focus on methods of organizing the pitches in this video. The organizational style of pitches that most of us are likely most familiar with is tonality. In tonal music, there's one pitch that feels like home base. That's our tonic. If something is in the key of C major or C minor, the pitch C is our tonic. Let's stay in C major for a minute. C, our tonic, is the most stable tone. Melodies typically want to end here. That makes them feel the most final and complete. The next most stable sounding tones are the third scale degree, E, and the fifth scale degree, G. These three tones are the tonic triad. Let's look at the least stable tones. Every major scale has these unstable tones called tendency tones. The fourth scale degree, or F in the key of C, and the seventh scale degree, or B, in the key of C. They both really want to move by half step, 4 to 3 and 7 to 1. So these tendency tones push us to two of the most stable tones, E and C. Incidentally, the interval between the fourth and seventh scale degrees in a major key is called the key-defining tritone. The other tones, 2, D, and 6, A, are somewhere in the middle. If a melody ended there, it would sound incomplete, but not quite as painful as a melody that ends on 7. If music doesn't have that hierarchy of pitches, if there is no home base, we call it atonal. In atonal music, no pitches feel like they have any specific pull to any other pitches. Atonal music can be what is called free atonal, music that doesn't follow any rules, but instead just doesn't focus on any tonic pitch. It has no structure, or not structured pitch organization in that way. But what do we do if we want to put some structure on atonal music? One common method to structure atonal music is something that most music students will have to study at some point, and it's called Dodecaphonic music, or 12-tone music. From Wikipedia, only the best research here, but anyway, from Wikipedia, the technique is a means of ensuring that all 12 tones of the chromatic scale are sounded equally often in a piece of music, while preventing the emphasis of any one note through the use of tone rows, orderings of the 12 pitch classes. All 12 notes are thus given more or less equal importance, and the music avoids being in a key. While other versions of organizing the 12 pitch classes exist, we're going to focus on the most common of them, the one developed by composer Arnold Schoenberg. Basically, a composer working in this style has to use all 12 of the pitches in a certain order within a tone row before they can move on to another row, or typically another iteration of that same row, but we'll return to that thought in a moment. In tonal music, a composer is most likely to focus on just 7 pitches, falling within a major scale, a minor scale, or a mode, for example. Any other pitch they use is typically an accidental, and it usually adds some extra color or flavor to the pitches in the scale or mode in use at that moment. This is an example of a tone row. All 12 pitches, or if you think about it differently, all 12 keys on a piano within an octave are present here. A composer using this row can repeat a single pitch as many times as they want. But they know that the next one has to be the next one in line. The art in this style of music is in its rhythm, dynamics, and articulation, and how you organize the harmonies that come with this tone row. One possibility for an organizational method of the harmony of this row is using the same row, but backwards, called retrograde. Or perhaps you could use the inverse of the row. For instance, this perfect fourth that opens the row turns into a perfect fourth down instead, creating a mirror image of the row. Here's what this sounds like. And in this case, the perfect fourth down is changed to a perfect fifth up. So C going down to G is the same thing as C going up to G. This just puts it all into one octave. So that's what this sounds like here. Or you could do both the inverse and the retrograde at the same time. So the row is mirrored vertically and played backwards. This is what that sounds like. You can also transpose the initial tone row of any of these permutations to any other starting pitch. So here is what the normal order looks like starting on G. And this is what it looks like starting on E flat. To organize all of these different versions of the tone row, you can create a matrix like this. Look familiar? The initial tone row is here at the top, labeled P for prime. The inverse is created by reading a column downward instead of a row across. The retrograde is when you read right to left, and a retrograde inverse is read from bottom to top. Since the initial row has all 12 pitches, this chart also shows all possible transpositions of these four versions of the row. I think it could be a really fun puzzle to create one of these matrices, but is it fun to listen to music that is created from this? Honestly, not for me, not in my opinion. The music of Schoenberg and other composers who worked in this style has never really been my cup of tea. But really, the compositional or analytical methods for dodecaphonic music are not the important parts of this video. I mostly want to keep this matrix in mind as we move on to our next compositional technique. During my studies for my doctorate, I studied some of the music of American composer William Schumann. In my research on Schumann, I came across the idea of autogenetic melodic technique, an idea developed by one of Schumann's teachers, Roy Harris. Brian Lamb, in his 2001 dissertation, Roy Harris, American Symphony, 1938, a perspective on its historical significance and autogenetic elements with a performance of a reconstructed modern wind ensemble edition, wrote a definition of the autogenetic melodic technique that I really like. Harris' compositional approach was based on an underlying principle that he called autogenesis, meaning that a melodic design or a harmonic pattern flowers from a seed motive, with each phrase following the first and relating back in one of two ways. It could either launch itself from a figure in the last measure of its immediate predecessor, or it could refer back to a seed motive. Harris' aim was to produce the effect of gradual, organic growth. This often gives his music the impression of unfolding in an additive fashion in autogenetically generated blocks of texture. So basically, a new compositional idea is based on either the end of the previous motive, so it feels like it's growing out of the previous motive, or it's based on the seed motive, the short idea that the whole piece is based on. With this method, you can have several different ideas flowering out of the same seed motive. If done properly, they each will feel like they grew organically to get there, but they will also feel connected back to the same seed idea, so it will be cohesive. When I was studying a particular piece by William Schumann, who also used Roy Harris' Autogenetic Melodic technique, I found something interesting that made my wheels start turning. I've linked this piece in the description if you want to give it a listen. I noticed that a motive reappeared at significant moments in the piece, but was slightly different each time. For instance, the first interval one time in the melody was a major third going up, but another time it was a minor third going up, or a minor third going down. Thinking about the autogenetic melodic technique and then dodecaphonic techniques gave me the idea to put an organized structure onto this technique. Now comes the part that you've seen if you've watched one of my original composition streams. I create a matrix like you would for dodecaphonic music, but I do it with any melody. Let's take a look at a matrix that I made using a melody I wrote a long time ago that I wanted to reuse for a new piece. So if you've watched one of my composition streams before, you know that this looks a little different, but basically this highlighted one in the middle here, labeled original, is the melody of that piece. In between all of the notes are these things that show how many half steps or semitones up or down are between the two pitches. So from A to D at the beginning, there are 5 semitones up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a perfect fourth. Then after that, we've got a much larger leap of up 11. That is a major seventh. When I was looking at how Schumann had a major third and a minor third used interchangeably in the same spot, that made me think, what if this perfect fourth at the beginning, up 5 semitones, were instead up 4 semitones, making it a major third. So I took that entire initial melody and shrank each interval by 1 semitone to create an entirely new melody. So I did that for each level, shrinking the interval until they all got to zeros, or a unison. Etc. In the other direction, I grew each interval by 1 semitone to make it sound different again. Just the first couple pitches this time. And I did that until each interval got up to 12, or a perfect octave. Then I took that a step further and did the retrograde. So this whole thing backwards, using the same method of shrinking each interval or growing each interval. Then I did the inverse, so the mirror image. A step up turns into a step down, and so on, growing and shrinking each interval. Then I did, just like with dodecaphonic technique, the retrograde inverse. So it is mirrored vertically and is done backwards. What can you do with these matrices now? You can use any of these rows as a jumping off point for a compositional idea. You can use them for harmonies under a melody. You can use just a fragment of a row, or you can use the whole thing. Basically, this is just a framework to give you melodic ideas that feel connected but distinct. Okay, now let's take a look at a piece of music that I wrote based on this matrix. This is a very simple solo piano piece that I wrote back in 2019 in memory of a good friend, John, who died in 2018. This original melody is from the score of a music-heavy theater piece that John and I composed together back in 2008 or 2009. This newer solo piano piece is intentionally very simple. I wanted to write something that I could play myself, and I'm not a good pianist. I used bits of this matrix based on the theme, and sitting at a piano most of the time, I harmonized melodies with things that were from the matrix or things that were not from the matrix. I also have a few sections that were not at all based on the matrix in either their melody or harmony, but I just thought they sounded good with these parts that were from the matrix. Let's follow along with the score while we listen to a performance by my friend Francesca Hurst. She recorded this for her YouTube channel back in 2020. Her channel and her performance of this piece are linked in the description of the video. So there you have it. If you're a composer, I hope you play with this idea. I found it really helpful when I want to write something quickly, but I don't know where to start. Feel free to expand on these ideas too. I think there's a lot that you could potentially do. And if you do end up using this method, I'd love to hear what you create, or at least read about what you created. Also, what should I call this method? Something like serialized autogenesis? Let me know any thoughts you might have in the comments. Please give this video a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you feel like it. These music theory vids are not the main portion. They're only a very small portion of what we do on this channel. More often, my friends and I are discussing or reviewing some sort of media, especially music or video games. But check out the music theory playlist on the playlist tab if you want to see more of the music theory vids. Thanks for watching. Check out this video up here if you want to see what YouTube thinks you might like, or check out this playlist down here if you want to see that music theory playlist that I was telling you about. That should be about it. See y'all next time. Maintain your groovy selves.